That's lousy, really lousy. Sorry about that. Uh, and yeah, so basically, Machiavelli claimed that ethics have no place in civic life. Machiavelli did not borrow the term citizen either from Latin or from Greek. He borrowed what after him Hobbes wrote as an essay entitled The Sea Way, the CIVE, which was written in Latin by Hobbes. And the Seaway, who is the Seaway? The Seaway is the civic individual. And who is the civic individual? When we talk about civic individuals, we talk about those people who abide by the spirit of civic sense. So you're driving a car, you go, there's a red signal, you open the door and vomit 3 liters of palm, whatever that is. And that's not civic because you aren't being mindful of the inconveniences that can cause because of your spitting on the. I mean, just think of it as something that you have done during the COVID period. Now, God knows who would have picked up what germ from that and who would have picked up COVID germs from that because there's a copious amount there. Okay, so we often say that we Indians don't have civic sense, and that is very true. It is absolutely true. The world over, there is a rule which says that the pedestrians have the first right to the road and the pavement, or sidewalk, as the Americans call it. Okay, so if you see a car at a certain distance and you decide that I can cross this road, you'll start crossing the road, the car will slow down. If necessary, come to a dead halt. And it's only after you have finished crossing that the car will start moving. It won't happen so clearly in the highly populated areas of USA like Boston and New York and places like that. Okay, so if you look at uh, New York and Boston, they have found a better, they have found not a better, they have found an alternative that fits this particular situation in the city better. Now, in the city, if everybody starts jaywalking, walking across the road, then the traffic cannot stop. So that's why you have traffic crossings, you have zebra crossings. And at the zebra crossing, you'll find one button, a red button. So what happens is when you want to cross the road, You stand at the zebra crossing, hit the red button, and once all the lights turn red, then you walk across. Mind you, not that people will say anything if you're one person and you press that button and walk. Civic sense again dictates that people will have to wait for a substantial number of people to gather so that it makes sense to press the button and stop the traffic. Okay, you don't find policemen pot-bellied um, running behind a motorcycle trying to stop. You don't find all those things. That shows that for all that Modi ji says, we are still in the Neolithic age. Okay, so we don't have civic sense. Truly, we don't have civic sense. Civic sense would also mean when you're traveling in a bus or something, and an older person comes, you get up and give the seat to them. Or if there is a lady traveling, you get up and give the seat to her. Here you'll try to throw the lady out, the old man out of the bus itself and sit on those. So that is the idea of a civic person, one who is aware of his duties and responsibilities to the civic sphere of life, which is where we are in public. Okay? You're there in public there. So there you have to follow certain rules so that there is order and nobody is getting inconvenienced. All right? Now, so what Machiavelli does is that he takes this civic sphere and bifurcates it into the civic sphere and the political sphere. The civic sphere continues to be in the hands of the civic person who has to do certain things as per law. And then there is a question of, you know, you are also a political person because a political person is one who has the acuity, who has the timing to take appropriate decisions, and through that run the political sphere successfully. So the civic sphere and the political sphere actually end up being complementary to each other. They will require one or the other. And this is a brilliant move by Machiavelli to reintroduce to reintroduce politics back into the vocabulary of governance and all without there being a polis. So today we are talking about politics. We are studying political science. Why? Thanks to Machiavelli. And catching on from Machiavelli, you have the social contractualists, starting with Hobbes, going down to Locke, to Rousseau. So you have all these contractualist thinkers. But this is not the only change that took place. The other change that took place is the inversion in the conception of society. This is what Machiavelli did. Now, it is impossible at this point to say he did it wantingly or it just happened as a result of his various other doings. So, what we are looking at when we look at Machiavelli is that Machiavelli becomes the precursor of individualism. Now, I have many times told you that Aristotle says, what is good for the society is good for the individual. And this conception essentially means that you put society ahead of the individual. Okay? The logic behind the thought process here is that if you put the society ahead of the individual, then the individual will never progress. There are all kinds of tentacles that get woven around him, and so the individual doesn't progress. So, if you have to allow the individual to discover his own potential, to discover his own potential, to improve himself in ways that he likes, then you have to remove these obstructions, these tentacles that are standing in the way of his growth and forward movement. So that is what Machiavelli was doing. In doing so, he prioritized the individual good over that of the common good, which means what is good for society need not be good for the individual in Machiavelli. Need not be. And in fact, he believed, if you read his Prince, not that there's much to read in that book, but you will see that there is an attempt on the part of Machiavelli to differentiate between achievers and non-achievers. And he believed that the Christian church, and that's why I said he was one of the early antichrists, So what he said right at the beginning um, was standing good now, which is the individual should take care of himself. It's no one else's responsibility to take care of anyone else. Okay? So it is the responsibility of the individual to take care of oneself. And later on, people like Hobbes and Locke said if every individual takes care of his good, then the social good is automatically taken care of, which is not a naive statement that they have made, but it is a very, very threatening and dark statement. If there is a social good, a common good, there is only one. If there is an individual good, then we come into clash with each other, right? I am furthering my good. You further your good. Now, if one of us is getting into the other person's way, let's settle it. Or as the Americans say, let's take this outside. Civic sense again. They won't sit and break somebody's drinking glasses and wine bottles in a bar. They'll say, let's take this out. Okay, so what we see, therefore, is the plantation of the idea that the individual is now prior to society. Previously, I have given you this example. If you said, I see a soldier, I see a soldier in his uniform, then what does that presuppose? It presupposes that there is an army. Why would somebody be dressed like what is the dress of a soldier, anything, if there is no army? If there is no army, there is nothing, right? So, unless and until we have a collective first, okay, then we can have the others in it. So, they say without first creating an army, you cannot create soldiers. Similarly, when it comes to this idea of individualism, in this idea of individualism, what do you find? What you find is that individualism of this variety basically says if there isn't an individual or if there isn't a group of individuals, how will they all come together? How will they all come together and form a society? So the individual comes first. And all the individuals will get together and form a society. That is a new construct for you. This is individualism. So I was speaking to you about Mark and Avenarius. Mark and Avenarius, their empiricism is something which is based in this kind of individualism. It is almost as much as it is possible to not look at things like value, philosophy. They don't try to look at them. They don't denounce them. They don't try to look at them. So what you have to understand, what you have to understand is that these people um, are looking at creating atomic individual. Okay, it's an atomic individual. And you can see in the societies of the West and in the societies of not so much India anymore. Uh, but you see that there is a great deal of family values and all attached to the not so developed countries. But countries, as they are developing, as they have reached the fold of the developing, they have also started embracing individualism. Okay, so somebody leaves their father and mother and goes off, and then you'll wonder how are they going to take care of, who's going to take care of these people? You have services now. You have services. You can sit in the US, go through search engines in India, pick up a service, ask them, will you do this for my parents? And if the price is right, then that is done. So services start coming up in place of commodious individuals, individuals living a life of self, mutual self dependence. What we are trying to do now is monetize everything, monetize everything. And through the monetizing of everything, we are maintaining a fetishized society. A fetishized society I'll go to later. But tomorrow, when I meet you, I would like to have a discussion on, I'd like to have a discussion on empiricism, because to tell you the truth, as research methodologies taught in our university, they talk about empiricism, but they don't really know that what they're talking about is empiricism. So we'll talk about empiricism. And empiricism is relatively more successful than positivism. So let's also try and understand how is it that empiricism became a little more of a success uh, while compared to positivism. So if you look at the idea of empiricism, um, empiricism is still the dominant way of doing research, especially in Western countries. Now with this newfound a love affair between public policy and data. Now, the public policy is going in a completely different direction, and it is relying upon data. So, in a few years from now, without machine learning, without chat GPT, Druid, AI, without all these, you'll not be able to do at least one part of political science. Okay, so thank you. Uh, See you tomorrow, and I hope more of you come. What else can I say? And let us get on with empiricism, because that's now we've come to. That's where the survey, the you know, the mathematical things of the 10th percentile and the interquartile methods, they all come in empiricism. Okay, so it's much more mathematical than positivism is. So, okay then. Uh, Thank you very much. See you tomorrow.
Thank you, sir. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.